Hey, Mr. Grady, can you hear us? Mr. Grady, turn up your volume. Turn up the volume. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? We're not muted. Can you call him and tell him to turn up the volume? Can you hear us yet? Let us know when you can hear us.
There we go.
Hey, Max.
Now we can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can't hear you.
Can you turn up your volume? We can. Your mic.
You want me to try logging in on my phone?
Can you turn up your volume on your computer? We can hear
Yeah,
you.
it's up all the way.
Can you hear us now?
I know only on my phone. Why don't I try logging in on my phone?
Okay.
All right.
That is.
I thought it was right because the stupid speakers are behind us. I don't like that. It's drives me nuts. Hey, Dan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, we lost Ben. No, for some reason I didn't have to admit you on that when you called in by phone. Strange, but
Maybe it's because he's the host.
I don't know. He's
it asked me if I want.
Okay, now we hear you on both, so you're gonna have to mute one of them. You have to mute the microphone on one of them.
Here, how about that?
We can hear you just fine. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Attorney Hitchcock Cross, you ready to go? You're muted.
All right, we've succeeded.
Yes, Mr. Grady, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think we lost you on video there. I can't.
Yeah, I had to switch to my cell phone. My computer was not working right.
Were you okay with that? Yeah, it's absolutely fine. That's fine. All right. Do you work for Ashland County?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's your position there?
County administrator.
And
Okay.
hold on 1 second. Mr. Grady, not that this would happen, but make sure that you're not reading any emails or doing anything other than answering Mr. Hitchcock Cross's questions. I'm assuming that's the concern that he had there. So I just want to make sure that no one else is in the room and you're not reading anything other than what he's directing you to read.
I am not in, nobody else is in the room and I'm not reading anything. I'm just looking at my phone.
No, I appreciate that. It was just I saw your face and then I didn't, and I mean we'll be flexible. I appreciate that, Mr. Grady. Okay. Now you work for Ashland. What's your position with Ashland? I don't remember if we covered that. I'm sorry.
County administrator.
Okay. And do you know Brian Zupke?
Yes, he's the sheriff.
He's the sheriff. Okay. And do you know Kim Lavasseur?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How do you know Kim Lavasseur?
Kim used to be our jail administrator.
Okay. And about how long you've been county administrator?
Since Labor Day 2021.
Okay. Between that time and today, have you ever had any reason to become dissatisfied with Kim Lavasseur's work performance?
Here, figure out the phone.
Great.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. From Labor Day of 2021 until today, have you ever had any reason to be dissatisfied with Kim Lavasseur's work performance?
In the fall of 2022.
Okay. Fall of 2022. How did you become aware of those concerns?
I was informed about some incidents at the jail that were concerning.
Okay. Fall, and who was the sheriff at that time?
Mick Brennan,
And who informed you?
Chief Deputy Zuki.
Okay. Did you inform Mr. Mick of Mr. Zupke's conversations with you?
No, I did not speak to Mr. Brennan about it.
Why not?
He already knew about it.
How do you know that?
and I guess I can't. I don't know.
Okay, but you chose not to tell him, right?
I did not have a conversation with Mr. Brennan.
Okay, and you did that on purpose, right?
Yes.
Okay. What was the conversation that you had with Brian Zupke in the fall of 22? Or I'm sorry, I don't mean to put it. Were there more than one conversation you had with Mr. Zupke?
We had a couple conversations. Yes.
About how many?
Over the course of several months. I don't know, 10.
Okay, and you didn't mention any of these conversations to the actual chief law enforcement officer, the sheriff, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you believe Mr. Zupke to be jumping in the chain of command at that time or something else?
The jail administrator is responsible to the chief deputy.
Okay,
He's her direct report.
okay, and who's, does he report to anybody, the chief deputy?
He
Anytime?
reports to the sheriff.
Okay, and you knew that at this, all throughout this time, right?
Correct.
And you knew that when you chose not to contact the sheriff, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did Mr. Zupke run for sheriff at any time?
He did last year.
Okay, when did that start?
Well, filing period started in, I believe it's May of 2022.
Okay. And is that when you learned of it?
No, it wasn't until about right before deer hunting.
Okay, and this is the period of time when you had about 10 conversations with Mr. Zupke about Miss Lavasseur's performance, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's just go through all of the allegations that Mr. Zupke made to you, but not to the sheriff about Miss Lavasseur in 2022. Please name them all.
That there was, for months, there were assaults in the jail, and that Ms. Lavasseur did nothing to stop it.
Okay, anything else?
That she did not discipline the employees involved. She didn't separate the inmates after the first incident.
Okay, anything else?
Later on, I was given the report for that Detective Pierce made.
Okay, what's the nature of that report?
Well, that detailed all the allegations.
I'm sorry, it detailed what?
All of the allegations.
Okay, who are those allegations against?
Kim Lavasseur.
Oh, okay. How did you get this document?
It was given to me by Chief Deputy Zuki
Okay, when was this given to you?
in December.
Okay,
Probably
and
around the
this-
middle
sorry,
to
what?
late, around the middle of December.
Okay. When did you first learn about the sexual assault at the allegation at the Ashland County Jail?
Right before Thanksgiving, deer hunting.
Okay. And that was also throughout this period in October when you were getting information on the assault in the jail, is that right?
No, I said right before deer hunting. That's
Okay.
always the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Okay. So when you said October during your first answer, was that a mistake or something else?
I said deer hunting first answer.
and October, right?
I don't recall saying October. And if I
Okay.
did, it was a misspoke. I misspoke.
Okay. And when you said assaults in the jail, what assaults are you talking about?
Sexual assaults,
Okay.
two inmates, between two inmates.
So it's only the one, is there more than one incident of sexual assault?
To my understanding, it happened numerous times.
Okay. All right. Were there any discussions about, well, I'm gonna back up a second. Now I want to go to you said there was a list of charges against Kim Lavasseur. And maybe I misunderstood that because I think you said two names in connection with that, Mr. Zupke and the sergeant. Do you know who drafted that letter?
The list of allegations.
Right.
I don't know who drafted it now.
Okay. When was the last time you saw this list of allegations?
It would have been right before we terminated Lieutenant Lavasseur.
Okay. And how did you receive that list?
I received it from corporate counsel.
Okay. Is it in your email or somewhere else?
I believe it's in my email, yes.
Okay. So when you received it from Corporation Counsel, we're talking about Max Lindsay, right?
Correct.
But you also received it from the sheriff?
No, I did not receive it from the sheriff.
Okay, but the sheriff drafted it?
I don't know who drafted it.
Okay. Did you provide this document to Kim Lavasseur in response to her public records request?
Kim Lavasseur never made that request to me.
Okay.
Hold on, are we talking about the allegations that are in the letter or some other document?
No, it's a new document. It's a new document. Right, Mr. Grady?
The document I'm talking about is attorney-client privilege.
So this is a separate document.
That wasn't my question. My question to you, sir, is that the document that you received from Mr. Lindsay, is that the same as the response to Ms. Lavasseur's grievance or something else?
I'm just trying to remember back here. It was the one I received from Mr. Lindsay was the letter given to Kim Lavasseur.
Okay, how do you know it was given to Kim Lavasseur?
Well, corporate counsel told me.
Okay. Is that because he hand delivered it to him or something else?
Yes, he personally gave it to her.
Okay, but that doesn't contain any allegations on it, does it?
I think it does. Maybe maybe you and I read it differently, but I think it does.
Okay, and we're talking about the January 19th letter to Kim Lavasseur or something else?
That January 19th sounds about right.
Okay, let's look at that letter. Are you able to share your screen there?
Are you wanting to share or who do you want to share?
I don't want to share it. If you can share it or Mr. whatever.
Alright.
or whatever.
So, Mr. Grady, do you have a screen that you can see documents on in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we have Attorney Lindsay share the January 19th letter, I believe it is? Be able to do that?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up.
Mr. Lindsay, while we're waiting there, has this meeting been noticed by the county?
As a public meeting?
As a meeting, has this been noticed, sir?
It's not a public meeting.
It's not a public meeting.
Okay, has it been noticed as a closed meeting?
No, this
Doesn't
is,
involve county board members. Doesn't need to be noticed.
Oh, that's not a pitch.
I don't think we're on the same page with that, but I appreciate that answer. Let me know when you can see the document, sir.
Still finding it. All right, there it is.
There it goes. Can you see that?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hitchcock Ross.
This is the document you're referring to or something else?
no, something else.
What I thought. Okay. And do you see on this document, any allegations?
Not in this document, no.
No, okay. And do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you read all your emails, don't you?
Oh, except for the junk ones.
Okay, and this isn't a junk email, right?
No, it's not.
No, and you were copied on this?
I believe I was copied on it, yes.
Okay. If we could just scroll down, sir. I guess it's Max there. You see your name there copied?
Yes,
You were copied on this, right?
yes,
And you did read it, right?
yes.
Okay. So please show me what the allegations on here are.
This is a different letter.
Okay. So you will concede that there are no allegations on this letter, right?
On this particular letter, no.
Okay. Great. It might be for ease of, I mean, is it possible, Mr. Carlson, for him to just show us the letter that he's talking about as opposed to us to sort of guessing around which letter he's actually talking about?
I object to that. You're questioning him. You should have documents available to present to him to ask questions on.
Hold on. What are you asking? What letter are you asking?
He's saying that he got a letter from Mr. Lindsay that was drafted by Mr. Zupke that contained a list of allegations against Miss Lavasseur sometime in December of 2022. He first identified, then we were trying to figure out which this document is. We asked him if this was this document. He said he might have read it differently, so we put this document in front of him. I can put the other documents in front of him, but we strongly suspect that this is some other document that was not provided to us that he's talking about.
Okay,
So if they don't want to show it in this situation, that's absolutely objectionable. But the way I think that we get around this is just by asking him to show us this document that he says contains a list of allegations against Miss Lavasseur.
Mr. Grady, can you figure out which letter it is and if it's the county's response or what it is so that we can just kind of expedite the process?
Well, though I don't have it with me. I'm in Madison right now.
Yeah.
But it was a letter that was given to Kim Lavasseur.
Right. You're on a computer though, right, sir?
No, I'm on my phone. My computer's not working.
Okay.
So can we
think it
pull
was
up,
the
is it the response? Can we pull that up and see if that's what it is? That's the only other one I can think of. At least from what I've seen.
And do you have email on this phone?
Yeah, this is my personal phone.
Can you answer my question?
This is my personal phone. I have my personal email, not my county email.
So it's your testimony that you don't have access to county email right now.
I do on, let me see.
Okay, on that basis, are you able to pull up the document that you're referring to?
I might be able to.
Hold on, is
I
this
would
it right
appreciate
here?
it just for the time issues.
Is this the letter right here? I think that it's further down if I recall.
Yeah, with all these.
There's some bullet points there.
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Great. Okay, and what's the date on this letter?
February 16th, it says, I
Okay,
think.
and did you receive this in December of 2022?
No,
No, okay, so you're referring to another document that you received in December of 22?
I believe so.
Okay, can you show us that document, please?
I'm gonna see if,
Repeated requests. There's the handbook specifically says there's no discovery. Mr. Grady is called as a testifying witness. there's no basis to require him to produce a document at this time.
I agree with you. It's not a deposition either. There might be an open records issue, but that's for a different forum.
Oh, there's absolutely an open records issue. If they're, I guess we need to be clear that I mean, if they're refusing to produce this document, they're refusing to produce the document here. I mean, he's referencing the document to that extent that he can't produce it or is refusing to produce it. That's fine. I mean, it should be taken for what it's worth there. Obviously, we'll have to get him if and when he's deposed later. The issue, though, is, I mean, I think it also speaks volumes to what was going on ahead of time and what that they knew that all of this had happened back in December of 2023. And I strongly suspect that's the real reason for the objection, not that about the discovery issue here.
I understand. I think it's a potential open records issue, if there is an open records request made, et cetera. I don't think it's for this hearing. I think for this hearing, we're on a grievance and that's what it is. I understand how it ties into it, but I don't think we get into producing records in this hearing.
Well, there's no doubt that it's relevant, right, Judge? And the fact that you have the power here to ask questions, I don't see why you can't independently ask for this document yourself. It certainly seems like it would clear everything up.
I don't know that I need that.
Okay.
I don't, because if I'm looking at what it is that I'm supposed to determine, I don't know that I need that.
I understand. I appreciate that and thank you. Okay. But just so we're all clear, sir, you're positive that this February 16th letter is not the letter that you were referring to that Mr. Grady drafted listing charges against Miss Lavasseur, right?
I didn't draft any letters listing charges.
Okay. So if that was the only issue there with that statement or that question, I'm happy to repeat it. So this letter here dated February 16th of 2023 is not the letter that you just referred to that that Mr. Zupke drafted containing allegations against Miss Lavasseur, right?
Objection to the extent it misclarifies and misclassifies as prior testimony.
Re-ask it.
All right. So there's two letters, at least, and there's the one letter that's in front of us, right?
Yes, there's that letter in front of you.
Okay. And then there's also another letter that you were referencing, and those two letters are not the same thing, right?
Yeah, Miss Lavasseur was given another letter earlier than that, Jen, when she first was terminated.
Right. And we looked at that was January 16th, right?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, okay. And that didn't contain any allegations on it at all, right?
Other than she did her failure to perform her duty.
Okay. Did it say what those duties were?
I don't have it in front of me, so I can't.
Okay. So then, is there a reason you're putting your thumb in front of the screen, the camera there?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay, appreciate that. So, all right. What were the allegations in the letter that you received from Mr. Lindsay drafted by Mr. Zupke?
That assaults went on in the jail. That Miss Lavasseur did nothing to stop it.
Okay.
Did not discipline the employees.
And so these are the same allegations that he had been making to you over the course of at least 10 conversations, right?
Yes.
Anything new?
No.
No, okay. And again, you didn't tell the actual sheriff about any of these conversations or this letter at this time, right?
Correct.
And it's also true that Mr. Lindsay didn't tell the sheriff about this letter at any time, right?
I can't speak for Mr. Lindsay.
Okay, did you ever talk to Mr. Lindsay about whether he told Mr. Mick is the only, that he told Mick?
Did not have any conversation about that.
Okay. So it's true that Mr. Lindsay was in communication with the chief deputy, but not in communication with the sheriff about accusations about Kim Lavasseur, correct?
I can't speak to what Mr. Lindsay said to Mr. Brennan or not.
Okay. On this communication, was Mr. Brennan copied?
Not to my knowledge.
And you didn't forward it to him, right?
No.
Okay. And you didn't discuss with Mr. Lindsay why he was representing the chief deputy, right?
Mr. Lindsay was representing the county.
So who brought Mr. Lindsay into this discussion? You or the chief deputy?
Tell you the truth, I don't remember which one of us was first.
Okay, so it could have been.
I know it could have been, I think it was probably both around the same time.
Okay. Why do you believe that?
Because Mr. Zupke and I talked about it.
Okay, what was the nature of that conversation?
The nature of that conversation was we need to get corporate counsel involved
Okay, why?
because we believe there was serious misconduct going on at the jail.
Okay, did you discuss telling the sheriff at that time?
We did not tell the sheriff at that time, no.
Excuse me, can you answer my question, please?
Did we discuss telling the sheriff?
That's right.
I sorry, I'm just trying to remember here. It's been a while and a lot happened then. I believe that we did discuss that.
Okay, and after those discussions, you didn't tell the sheriff, right?
Correct.
Okay, what was the nature of those discussions that you had with the deputy sheriff about not telling the sheriff?
That we thought we should go to corporate counsel instead.
Okay, for what reason did you bypass the sheriff to go to corporate counsel?
Because Mr. Zupke was sheriff-elect at that point.
Okay. Now, does
So-
Ashland County have any policy and procedures?
Yes, we have policies and procedures.
Great. Can you show me which policy and procedure allows you to bypass the elected sheriff because the chief deputy is the pending elected sheriff?
I don't believe there's a policy that says what that one way or the other.
Oh, so you can do that if you want to? You believe it's discretionary or something else?
I believe I have the authority to do so.
Okay, did you
To
discuss
go
this?
go to corporate counsel anytime I feel the need.
Right. That's not the issue here, though, is it, sir? It's not, the question isn't whether or not you have the ability to go to corporate counsel. The question is on what basis did you have the authority to conspire with the chief deputy and without the actual sheriff?
Objection to that question and its insinuations.
Well, there's absolutely conspiracy here. You want to go over the element?
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to what this hearing is about.
That's the best response you're going to get from me on that. And how is this possibly irrelevant to what this hearing is about? The decision to terminate this person was made in a conspiracy between the non-elected sheriff and this man here and the corporation counsel. And that's somehow irrelevant to whether or not they had, or they acted reasonably?
I have to determine whether or not there is a rational basis to determine whether or not there is a grounds to dismiss.
Right. Right. And so now when we're
Hold on,
unearthing.
hold on. So we've got a February, I want to say it's 17th, the response from the February 16th response from the county that outlines the reasons for the dismissal.
Uh-huh.
So I need to determine whether or not there's a rational basis for that.
Sir,
So now
if
we're,
you're gonna play that game, then there's nothing that's relevant before February 20, the date that they said the determination was this January 27th.
I'm not going to tell you where to ask your questions, but I don't see the connection that you're trying to draw. I don't see it.
What connection am I trying to draw?
That somehow a conspiracy creates an irrational basis, right?
So a conspiracy is merely an agreement between one or two parties to do something.
Well versed in a.
That's illegal. Oh, okay.
So I know what a conspiracy
Excuse
is.
me, sir. I'm just going to finish my thought here. And then if you would allow me that chance before interrupting me, I'd appreciate it. So with that definition of conspiracy in mind, the issue here isn't whether or not, I don't care whether or not they illegally conspired to do X, Y, and Z, let's say to undermine the actual elected sheriff that these three people have now admitted to. That's not my concern. Okay, that's probably a different issue for the Law Enforcement Standards Bureau and so forth, the Department of Justice and so forth, just like that other issue is for the public records complaint that we are eligible to file now. That's not really what we're going after here is, we're trying to figure out how this decision was made. So to say that we can't talk about the fact that they are undermining the actual person who's the appointed authority here, that's very problematic. It's also extremely relevant to the decision and whether or not there was any reasoning behind it. So if they're acting not only illegally in terms of Loudermill, but they're undermining the elected sheriff at that time illegally, because there's absolutely no doubt about it that the sheriff and not the deputy sheriff is the holder of the powers entrusted to the county by the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin. So just because these individuals have undermined the Constitution is relevant because it shows that it's an irrational decision. Again, if they had followed any kind of law, for example, Loudermill due process, or had they not been engaged in a conspiracy to undermine the elected representative of the people, that with the law enforcement powers against the Constitution, then we'd be somewhere. But because they've done that, that's evidence, making it more or less likely that is relevant that they acted unreasonably. So I get it that there's evidence and there's a serious problem for the county now, and that these things tend to come out. I get it that we warned them, but hey, the fact of the matter is that this is absolutely why these the decision could not be upheld as rational, because it was made in secret without, again, in secret charges, not notifying Kim Lavasseur of what happened, nor giving her adequate opportunity to respond because she didn't know about it. This is Loudermill, she didn't have notice. It was all done in secret. And in fact, the decision was made well ahead of time. And not only was it made well ahead of time, it was made illegally and in secret against the democratic wishes of the people of Ashland County and against the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, which gives the power to the sheriff and not the deputy sheriff. So
I'm going to request that Attorney Cross stop with legal arguments and save that for a closing argument if that's at all.
Stop. I'm gonna allow you to make your record, Mr. Hitchcock Cross. Are you done making a record on it?
I'm done making my record on this issue, yeah.
I find it's irrelevant. You're free to appeal whatever decision I might make. Move on, let's go.
Great, I'm gonna need some clarification on what is irrelevant there, so we don't sort of stray back into that territory. What's
Asking-
irrelevant here?
Ask your next question and I'll tell you whether or not it's relevant or not.
That's very helpful, thank you. Was there anybody else besides Max Lindsay and Chief Deputy Zupke that you consulted with regard to the decision to terminate Kim Lavasseur?
No.
No, okay. So it was just between the three of you?
Correct.
Okay. Are you required to notify, and I guess let's say, what is the legislative body for Ashland County?
County board.
Are you required to notify the county board at any time when you act with the chief deputy to undermine the sheriff?
Objection to the misclassification of that question.
Well, it assumes facts and other issues. It's argumentative. Re-ask it.
Well, I can be argumentative all day long. This is adverse party here, but okay.
You're on direct. You are not allowed to be argumentative.
I'm sorry, what?
Ask your next question.
All right. Do you know what an appointed authority is, sir? Appointing authority?
Yes.
What is an appointed authority?
Well, the appointing authority in this case would be the county board. And I would be an appointed person.
Okay. So is it your testimony that you can hire and fire Kim Lavasseur?
Yes.
How about the sheriff? Can he hire and fire Kim Lavasseur?
Technically, no. The county administrator is the one who's responsible for that.
How do you know that?
That's corporate counsel informed us of that.
Okay. If I wanted to find, let me ask you, does Ashland County have any ordinances?
Yes.
If I wanted to find the ordinances for Ashland County, how would I find those?
They're on the county website,
Okay.
or you can go to the clerk's office and look at them.
And you know they're on the website?
Yes, they.
Okay. Well, because I haven't been able to find them, so I'd appreciate it if you had any other information on where I could find them from there.
I can look.
No, I won't. I understand, Mr. We're on a schedule.
Well, you can also contact the county clerk.
Okay. So, who do you think made the decision to terminate Kim Lavasseur?
In the end, it was me,
Oh, okay. How do you know that?
because I said that.
Because you said she was terminated, therefore she's terminated?
I said it was time. I was the one who said we need to let her go.
Awesome. Okay. Did you have any communications with Kim Lavasseur before you made that decision?
No.
Okay. When did you make this decision?
Beginning of January.
Okay, before January 19th?
Shortly before.
Okay. Now, are you aware that Mr. Lindsay handed Kim Lavasseur a letter on January 19th?
Yes.
Did you participate in that decision to give Kim Lavasseur that message at that time?
I was not present when she was given that message.
I understand that. Did you coordinate, did you participate in the coordination of that delivery?
No, I did not participate in the coordination of that delivery.
Fair enough. Were you aware that Mr. Lindsay was going to hand this letter to Miss Lavasseur before she got the letter?
Yes,
How were you aware of it?
I was informed by Mr. Lindsay.
Okay. Did you have any communications with Mr. Zupke prior to that, Miss Lavasseur getting this letter?
I talk to Mr. Zupke every day, so
Okay, how about Miss Lavasseur? So thanks for that.
yes, we did.
Okay. And what was that conversation?
It was about the letter Mr. Lindsay was going to give Ms. Lavasseur.
Okay, and did you understand that Mr. Zupke was going to meet with Miss Lavasseur shortly thereafter?
Yes,
Okay, whose idea was that?
to meet with Ms. Lavasseur.
Yeah, after you handed to coordinate the meeting with Miss Lavasseur immediately after you handed the letter.
I don't know whose decision that was.
Okay. But it would have been you, Mr. Lindsay, or Mr. Zupke, right?
It would have been one of the three, yes.
Okay, and you're the decision maker there?
Yes,
Okay. So if there's a disagreement between you and the sheriff, you were the one who makes the decision?
yes.
Okay. That's good to know.
When
And
it
is
comes
that-
to employment, let me rephrase that. When it comes to employment matters for
Okay.
non-represented employees.
And was that the case when Mick, for lack of a last name, was the sheriff?
McBrennan.
Mhm.
Mick and I did not have any human resource conversations.
Okay. So was the decision made to terminate Lavasseur before or after Zupke became the actual sheriff?
It was made after.
But you have been discussing it for months before?
We discussed the evidence before, yes.
Okay, and you brought Mr. Lindsay in before, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss the timing? And let's put it like this, was the election significant in the timing of giving Miss Lavasseur the termination letter?
No, the fact that we had the holidays was significant.
Okay. What about the sexual assault allegations?
What's your question about those?
Were those significant in the termination of Miss Lavasseur?
Yes,
How so?
she failed to perform her duty
What duty?
to prevent sexual assaults from happening, to
Okay,
separate prisoners, to discipline employees and prisoners or inmates
right.
in such events.
And you
It's all outlined in that letter that was on the screen not too long ago.
okay, and you understood that at that time that Mr. Zupke was the manager of the jail, is that right?
He was ultimately the sheriff was manager of the jail.
Okay, but Mr. Zupke immediately supervised Miss Lavasseur,
Lavasseur?
right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And the chief deputy's position description indicates that the chief deputy is the manager of the jail operations, right?
yes,
Okay, and you knew that at this time, right? While you were discussing these, yeah, okay. Did you ever ask Mr. Let's put it like this. Do you know when Mr. Zupke first learned about the sexual assault allegation?
somewhere around right before deer hunting,
How do you know that?
because he had told me as soon as he found out.
How do you know that?
That's what he told me.
Okay. What steps did you take to investigate Mr. Zupke's claims?
We had Detective Pierce start investigating, watching the video,
Sure.
and interviewing.
What steps did you take to investigate Mr. Zupke's claims that Mr. Zupke was notified only after deer hunting?
I asked then Chief Deputy Zupke to conduct an investigation
Into
into
the
this.
allegations that he made. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay, is that the normal course of activity?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So in other words, the person who's doing the complaint is the same person who does the investigation, is that right?
In this situation,
Okay. And I want to be clear, you authorized Mr. Zupke, what was the verb that you used to conduct this to start this investigation?
asked.
You asked him to do that, okay. And again, you never notified the actual sheriff that you had asked him to do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did Mr. Zupke complete that investigation, if you know?
Yes, it was completed.
Okay,
Detective Pierce conducted it.
say that again?
Detective Pierce conducted the investigation.
Okay, but this is an investigation into the alleged sexual assault, right?
Correct. Yes.
What about the investigation into the allegations against Ms. Lavasser?
Was handled by corporate counsel.
Oh, well, when was that initiated?
It was as soon as the investigation was completed,
When was that?
sometime in December.
Okay, so it's fair to say that while the sheriff was the sheriff, that Mr. Lindsay was actively investigating Mr. Zupke's charges against Ms. Lavasser without telling Mr. Zupke, right? Mr. Brennan, right?
I don't know what conversations Mr. Lindsay had with Sheriff Brennan.
Right, but you do know your conversations with Mr. Zupke and that you decided not to tell Mr. Zupke because Mr. Brennan, but because Mr. Zupke was the soon-to-be elected sheriff, right?
We decided not to tell Sheriff Brennan. Correct.
Right, and Mr. Lindsay participated in, also didn't tell him for the same reason, is that right?
I don't know what Mr. Lindsay's motivations were.
Well, did you have any discussions with him?
Not that I recall.
Did you instruct him on who he was to talk to or who he was not to talk to?
No,
No, okay. How do you know he started this investigation?
because the evidence came forward and we asked him to look at it.
Okay, so who asked him, you or Mr. Grady?
Me.
Okay. So when you said you asked Mr. Grady before, or Mr. Zupke to do that, that wasn't accurate, right?
No, yeah, we had it. You asked about the assaults, and that was conducted by the Sheriff's Department.
I appreciate that clarification a lot. Thank you very much. So it's, you asked Mr. Zupke to start the investigation into the sexual assault allegation, right?
Yes,
And then you asked Mr. Lindsay, the corporation counsel, to start the investigation into Ms. Lavasser, right?
correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, do you have any firsthand knowledge that Mr. Lindsay investigated the claims against Ms. Lavasser?
I know Mr. Lindsay saw the evidence, but I don't have firsthand knowledge of.
Okay, did you speak to him about it at all?
I spoke to him about the evidence. Yes,
When was that?
that would have been again in late December.
Okay, and again, this is while Mick Brennan was the sheriff, right?
Yes,
Okay. You telling me? You should let him know. What's happening. Okay. So I get it. Now, do you know who Kyle Kadat is?
yes, I do.
Okay, and what position does he hold now?
He is interim jail administrator,
Okay, and what position did he hold before you decided to terminate Kim Lavasser?
detective.
Okay, who made the decision to promote him to assistant jail administrator? Or sorry, interim jail administrator?
I did.
Okay. How did you come to that decision?
I spoke with the sheriff, and we felt that was the best qualified candidate.
Okay, so the sheriff gave you the candidate, is that right?
Sheriff made a recommendation.
Okay. Now, was this decision made while Mr. Zupke was actually the sheriff or some other time?
It was when he was sheriff.
Okay.
It was in January.
Well, there's not much time in January, right? So let's pin that down. Was it the first week of January? When was it?
I believe his first day was January 19th, somewhere around there,
Okay,
give or take a few days.
so almost immediately upon taking office, the county terminates Miss Lavasser, right?
Yes,
Okay. And when did Mr. Kadat learn that he was going to be the interim jail administrator, if you know?
that would be again that would be after the termination of Ms. Lavasseur,
Okay. How do you know that?
because that's when I talked to him about it.
Okay. And this is, when you say him, you mean Mr. Kadat?
Yes,
All right. Do you have any training in discipline?
yes, from graduate school.
Okay, what is that training?
Well, I would have a master's in business, so we do have to do coursework on that.
Okay. And
And I was a city administrator before that,
at what city?
Abbotsford.
Okay. And just one second. Did you, during that time, did you ever learn about pre-disciplinary hearings?
Yes.
Okay, what is your knowledge of pre-disciplinary hearings?
Well, my knowledge here is Wisconsin is an at-will employment state, and we can terminate an employee at any time.
Okay, how did you come to that understanding?
That was part of Act 10.
Okay. To your knowledge, do employees have any after Act 10, do employees have any due process rights?
They have this grievance procedure.
That's objection to the extent it seeks a legal conclusion.
Sustained.
Sure, I'm not asking you for your legal conclusion. I'm asking you for your awareness at this time when you were imposing discipline here. Were you aware of any due process rights that should have been afforded to Ms. Lavasseur prior to termination?
And we're an at-will employment state.
So is that a no?
It means you don't need to have due process prior to termination.
Okay.
This is her due process right here.
And how did you come to that conclusion?
Again, that's an act of the state legislature.
Okay. And did you have this understanding prior to the termination of Ms. Lavasseur?
Yes,
Okay. And do you still have it now?
yes.
Okay.
Take it up with the state legislature.
All right. Now, there are two termination letters, and I guess this is partially what I don't understand. Are you aware of whether or not there's a second termination letter for Ms. Lavasseur?
I guess, what are you talking about?
So there's a letter on January 27th. Are you aware of that? That's dated January 27th. Are you aware of that letter?
I don't remember the date, so you'd have to be more specific.
No problem. But to clarify, it's your position that she was terminated on January 19th in conjunction with Mr. Lindsay when she was terminated as jail administrator, right?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Carlson, can you show him the 27th letter?
I'll pull it up. Mr. Lindsay's gonna do that. Should be up.
You see this letter, sir?
Yes,
Okay, did you participate in did you authorize the drafting of this letter?
yes,
Okay, but it's also your testimony that 10 days before this, you had terminated her employment, right?
we had terminated her employment as jail administrator.
Okay. Now I understand. So, but when she was terminated for her employment, you didn't rehire her between the 10th and the 27th, right?
No,
No,
And just
okay.
for clarification, the letter you're referring to is Exhibit 7, letter dated January 27th.
That's right. Thank you for that clarification for the record. Okay. So, and I guess, when did the termination become effective? When Mr. Lindsay handed her the letter or some other time?
when Mr. Lindsay gave her the letter.
Okay. So when this letter says the county has decided to immediately terminate your employment rather than offer you the opportunity for continued employment as a correctional officer in Ashland County Jail. Do you see that?
Yes,
Okay. So that's false, right?
no, that's not false.
Well, okay. Why isn't it false?
If you look at the previous letter, there was an offer to stay on as a correctional officer.
Okay. So when somebody doesn't accept an offer, do you say that they're immediately terminated?
She was terminated as jail administrator.
Sure. That's not my question, sir. So she
Well,
was
sir, you're
already
twisting my
terminated-
words.
Excuse me, sir. On the 19th, you're clear that she was terminated the moment that that Mr. Lindsay handed her the letter on your behalf, right?
She was terminated as jail administrator, again,
Okay.
for the third time.
Was she ever hired as a correctional officer between the 19th and the 27th?
No,
No. Okay. So we don't say that you're terminating somebody's employment when somebody's not employed, right?
again, you have to look at the other letter first to take context.
Sure, we have done so, and we're certainly capable of doing it again, but are you able to explain to me how you can terminate somebody on the 27th who you've already terminated on the 17th? Right.
Again, Mr. Cross, for the fourth time, we terminated her as jail administrator on the 17th.
19th.
I'm not sure how you're conflating that, but that's
Great.
what we did.
Great. Did she, how many jobs did she, on the 19th, how many jobs did she hold with Ashland County?
She was offered the position as a correctional officer and I had not decided to accept that.
Okay, so can you answer my question, please?
Well, if you're asking me a reasonable question, yes.
Thank you. Can you still answer it despite your personal feelings on it?
Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's not accurate to say that the county had decided to immediately terminate her employment on the 27th because she was not employed on the 27th. True?
Again, you're twisting it. She was offered the position as correctional officer and had not accepted that.
Okay.
This letter on the 27th rescinds that offer.
Does it say that?
I believe so. The last sentence in the first paragraph.
So it's your testimony that the county has decided to immediately terminate your paragraph is synonymous with has decided to no longer extend you an offer of employment. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And just a second, please. I'm gonna put myself on mute for a second. Please bear with me.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, sir, if you can just, I'm trying to scroll down, but I can't. If whoever's in control of this document can scroll down to the next little bit there. I read pursuant to the Ashland County Grievance Handbook and Wisconsin Stats, et cetera, you have the right to file a grievance requesting a review of this employment action. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, is declining to extend an offer of employment, is that considered an employment action or something else?
Depends on your definition of employment action.
Okay, keep that in mind. And what in Wisconsin statute 660509(1)(m) is triggered by not offering somebody employment?
No objection to the extent that's asking a specific legal legal opinion.
I appreciate that, based on your training and knowledge and expertise as administrator of the county and former city administrator and somebody who's taking business administration class.
I'm not a lawyer. I can't answer that question.
Are you able to answer it on any other basis?
The answer, it's all spelled out in our employee handbook.
Okay, great. And you, as county administrator, you're familiar with that handbook, right?
Yes,
And you're also familiar with the grievance policy, right?
yes.
Okay, so can you point to somewhere in the grievance policy where it's triggered by declining to offer somebody employment?
It's triggered by termination of employment.
Exactly. Okay, and you knew that when for the last 10 minutes, didn't you?
You didn't ask me that question.
Okay. Did you participate in the selection of the impartial hearing officer?
Yes,
How did that selection take place?
we reviewed available attorneys. Too many of them work with the county or have some personal relationship with me. And so we wanted to get somebody who was impartial.
Okay, are you aware of any connection between the hearing examiner and Mr. Lindsay?
Other than they're both corporate counsels in the same area, no.
Okay. So it's your testimony that you chose this independent hearing officer because he was the least conflicted?
Because
Objection.
he had no,
I will object to this line of questioning as irrelevant.
Hey, you can go ahead and make a record. I mean,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, Mr. Hitchcock Cross, I mean, I've sued the county, so I mean, I mean,
I appreciate that.
I
I
mean,
appreciate that.
so
We all,
take it for what it's worth,
I appreciate it. All right.
including the sheriff's department. So I mean,
I appreciate it. All right. So, Mr. Grady, it's also your testimony here today that Ms. Lavasseur did not receive any notice of any of her charge of any of the alleged rule violations that she committed until the grievance response document. Is that fair to say?
the letter she was given explained the reasons for her termination.
After she filed the grievance, right?
No, on the day she was terminated. There's a copy of that letter on our website. Or,
It's on your website?
yes, under news.
Wow. I see what you mean about defamation, huh? Okay.
Furthermore, Ms. Lavasseur told the Ashland Daily Press everything.
Okay, so in my capacity as corporation counsel, I'll just read out this letter here for January 19th. This letter provides you official notice that Ashland County has decided to remove you from your current position as jail administrator effective immediately. Okay, did I read that right?
Sounds right.
Tell me where in that sentence it says what you did wrong.
It says later on in the paragraphs, later paragraphs.
Great. You may continue your employment with Ashland County in the position of correctional officer in the Ashland County Jail. Tell me how that says what you did wrong.
Mr. Cross, please finish reading the letter.
So you don't see that in that sentence, is that right?
Mr. Cross, please read the whole
You
document.
don't see that in this sentence. Yes or no, please?
Not in that sentence, no.
Great, then we'll keep going. With this change in your employment status, you are required to return the following department issued items in your possession: department cell phone, office, keys, department credit cards, and department laptop. Did I read that sentence right?
Sounds correct.
Right. Tell me where in that sentence it
Attorney
says,
Hitchcock Cross, let's stipulate that that letter does not state the reasons for termination.
who's speaking here, please?
Attorney Max Lindsay.
Thank you. Okay, so I assume you're also willing to stipulate that to that too, Mr. Grady. Did you understand what Mr. Lindsay said?
I am pulling up the letter in question.
Mr. Grady doesn't need to stipulate to anything as a witness. An attorney here is stipulating to the fact that that letter does not contain.
Guys, let's take a
State.
5-minute break here. Mr. Hitchcock Cross, is there a way that I and Attorney Lindsay can call you and have a little sidebar?
Yeah, you can. You know my cell phone.
I just sent you an email. Take a look at that. I sent it to Attorney Lindsay as well. And then let's have a quick discussion. Fair enough?
Sure.
Tell you what, I'm gonna use my cell phone to call you. What number should I call?
Whoa, wait. Is this the same old one where they're like, come on, the guy, this is the same old one where the guy is constructively discharged, so they're talking about the.
Hold on, hold
No,
on.
stop.
hold
stop.
on.
Frankly, what I was gonna,
Hey,
I'm not
hold
gonna
on.
go down that route.
Attorney Hitchcock Cross, frankly, I was gonna spare you. I think you are barking up the wrong tree with respect to what the law is with
Right,
Act
I think
10.
you should read the footnote.
We do not have Laudermiller apply to this case.
Great, let's go have a sidebar then.
Thank you. And
What number should I call you at?
You've got my cell phone, it's I'll call you.
do you have
I don't
Attorney
have,
Carlson's cell phone number?
Email it to me then.
okay, if you got it, then great. Let's, I'm gonna pause. this.
You can go up on the third floor. There's some witness rooms.
Can we use the bathroom?
I don't know, Kim. All right, I'm gonna go to the restroom if they come back, okay?
I am too.